Definitely the clunkiest trigger so far, but it groups well. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today is March 1st and the first meteorological day of spring. I always love spring. It promises the hope of sunny days and one of my favorite sporting events, March Madness. Along that line, Matt and I decided to have our own little sort of elimination tournament using striker-fired 9mm pistols priced under $400. I will try to give you an approximate price, but as we all know in the gun industry, MSRP versus what the gun actually sells for, as compared to what maybe another store is selling the gun for, will vary. But in general, you can get all of these guns for less than $400. Our total tournament will encompass 8 teams divided into 2 brackets. In bracket number 1, we have the Canik TP9SF squared off against the Gerson MC9. Completing that bracket will be the Taurus G3 XL against the Luger Security 9. In bracket number 2, we'll have the BRG9 Elite versus the Smith & Wesson SD9 VE. And in the bottom half of that bracket, in what I would consider the losers brackets, yes, I know I'm going to get trolled, but that's okay, we feature the SCCY or the Sky versus the High Point C9. As I said, a lot of people love those guns. You either love them or you hate them, but I thought it would be unfair to exclude them from the tournament. And it might be actually interesting to see how they do against other guns of more perceived value. I know a lot of you are out there thinking there's a lot of other pistols that you can get besides the ones we're going to use. There's certainly more than 8, but in the interest of brevity, we're going to keep it short and start off with that number. So as we go forward, what we're going to look at is not only the entire gear pack and what you actually get based on price, but how well the gun shoots. I haven't fired any of these guns, nor do I own them. I do use a Canik rival, but the Canik that we've selected today, I've never owned nor shot, and all of the guns will be new. So if there's malfunctions or stoppages, yes, it could be because they're new, but we're going to count that into whether or not they advance into the tournament. We've broken our tournament down into 2 brackets. The first bracket we'll get through today and get to an ultimate winner. I've selected a Canik versus a Gerson, and in the second matchup, we'll feature the Taurus G3 XL versus the Luger Security 9. So it's tip-off time, so to speak, in the March Madness tournament of sub $400 striker 9s. I will dry fire each weapon one time to sort of get used to the trigger so that we can kind of have an accurate test throughout. I'm only going to fire 15 rounds through every pistol, and I know some people are thinking that's not near enough to decide whether it's a good or a bad gun, and with that I would probably agree, but I can also tell you it'll be the same 15 rounds for all of the pistols we've selected. We'll start at 10, move to 25 feet, and then we'll try to finish up at 50 feet. I like testing out guns at longer ranges because that's when you really start to tell whether you have a inferior sighting system or perhaps a wonky trigger that the shooter would have a hard time getting on the target at that range. It's always going to be about the sights in the trigger and of course the way you manipulate it, so hopefully at a longer distance we can figure out how accurate the guns actually are in this price range. So without further ado, I'm going to dry fire the Canik and we'll get started. Once again, if there's any malfunctions, we're going to record that, and it will factor into my ultimate decision about who's going to advance and who's not. The first gun of the tournament will be the Canik TP9SF. This one's on sale for $387. I think that's pretty much a standard price, and of course is under the $400, but right at the top end of the range. It does have a nice little lockable hard case and some cleaning kits, as well as a holster, a really nice feature, which is going to save the consumer about $30 or $40. Kydex, real nice, gun fits in there well. It does come with 2 magazines, as well as a trigger lock. So all in all, not a bad little gear pack for under $400. The Canik features a rather unusual sighting system by some people's standards. I happen to really like it. Normally it's a 3-dot. This one is just a single dot on the front sight post and the blacked out rear. The Canik will be on the left side of the target, and of course the Girsan on the right. The Canik does have a very nice crisp trigger, and we're going to go with our first 5 at the 10-foot line. So, as you can tell, excellent grouping there, extremely accurate gun so far. We're going to continue the test here on the left middle target at the 25-foot range. I don't shoot iron sights a lot anymore, so we'll see. The recoil impulse is not on this firearm. It does seem to have a little bit of a low trend for me. That could be the way that I'm stacking the sights. They will have different points of aim and impact depending on the shooter, but from here, what my Gen 1 eyeballs can tell me, pretty good group. Here we go, 5 rounds, 50 foot with the Canik. Try to obscure the sight. And let's run it back in. The gun is empty. Both magazines did lock to the rear. What we have is, as you can tell, at 50 feet, the group did spread out considerably. This was me here, of course, on the middle one at the 25-foot range. But awful doggone good, in my humble, for not being really used to this gun or the sighting system yet. And you can tell what remarkable accuracy you do actually have at the 10-foot line. Very, very impressive. So let's move on to the Girsan and see how it does. The second part of our first matchup will be the Gerson MC9, also at the top end of our $400 price range. Does have a nice hard lockable case, but not near as many features as the Canik, and importantly, it does not come with 2 magazines. I would say at this price range, a definite knock for the MC9, and at this point, when we look at overall value in the initial purchase, I would say that the Canik has a clear edge, at least in this category. The MC9 does have your typical 3-dot sighting system, but they are nice and bright. We're about to put the Girsan through its paces. 15 rounds, identical test. This only has 1 magazine to test, which I find to be a very, very negative thing for the Girsan. However, it is worth noting, it is, of the 2, the only gun that has an ambi slide release. The Canik is only on 1 side. Being a left-handed shooter, that never made a huge difference to me. I've learned to adapt, but for some people, it could be a deal breaker, especially when the money's the same. So let's see how it goes. Dry fire this one. Of course, we're going to start top right. Back to the 3-dot. Not too bad of a trigger. It does have a crisp break, and it was actually a pleasant surprise. It's better than I thought it might be. So if we're all clear, Matt, here we go. 5 at 10 feet, Girsan. It does have considerably more creep than the Canik to the trigger. And at this distance is printing high for me, but that's okay. Also, the slide did lock to the rear. We'll move out to 25 feet. So we'll continue. 25 feet, right middle target. See how things go.
Oh, that's a fast trigger on my part. As you can tell. So here we go. We are back at the 50-foot line with the Girsan. I don't know exactly where the Girsan is zeroed to, but if I go to a center hold, you'll notice the shots are all impacting high. I'm going to try to shift down a little bit and see if that doesn't bring it to the bullseye, because I believe those were well-aimed shots. Okay. Those were more of a 6 o'clock hold. Not exactly sure what to make of this. Shooting the gun at 6 o'clock, there might be 2 in the top as well. And what I can tell you is that I find the Girsan to be not near as accurate at the 50-foot line. It has a more challenging trigger. It's a bit mushier and doesn't break quite as cleanly as the Canik. And not a fan of having to hold the sights off the target by just about 2 inches at 50 feet. I think clearly, based on the value in the pack of the Canik, the case, the holster, the extra magazines, and the inherent quality of the trigger and sights, it is easily the winner in this competition. Gerson MC9, eliminated. See you next year. In our second matchup, the first firearm is going to be the Taurus G3 XL 9mm, of course. This one is selling for $299, a significant reduction in what we've seen so far. So hopefully, with that reduction, we won't lose a whole lot of quality or value. When you open the box, of course, you got your literature and your trigger lock. But after that, things do get a little plain. Not a lot of accessories to speak of at all. However, significantly, you do get 2 magazines with this firearm, which at the $299 price range is a nice little advantage to have. But pretty much just for $299, plain Janes, let's see if it's functional. The Taurus, like the Canik, has a single dot front sight and a blacked out rear. So the first team, so to speak, in the bottom half of this bracket will be the Taurus G3 XL. The Taurus G3s have been out for a long time. The XL is just a little bit bigger with 2 12-round magazines. And it actually is the cheapest one in this bracket at $299. Let's see how much value there actually is at that $299 price point. 5 rounds at the 10-foot mark. We're going to print this gun onto the left side bullseyes. There is a tremendous amount of take up in this trigger. Sights. Definitely the clunkiest trigger so far. But it groups well. Going to be a challenge at the 50-foot line. Okay, magazine lock to the rear. Notice the way I'm stacking the sights. The rounds are printing a little low, but let's see what happens at 25 feet. So here we go, 25 feet with the Taurus G3 XL, middle target. I can tell you from the first 5 rounds, this is a clunky trigger. Once you're on the wall, the interesting part is the take-up is not consistent. It seems to take a couple of different pressures. There's almost 2 walls in the trigger. However, I can tell you that The recoil is very manageable in what's going to be the smallest gun in this tournament so far. All right. That looked pretty good. It is a very, very difficult trigger to manage. Now we're going to go down and see where the rubber hits the road at 50 feet. Unload, clear, and lock. 5 rounds at 50 feet with the Taurus G3. I'll do my best and hope for the best. I like the sights way better than I do on the Gerson, and they are similar to the Canik. All right, guys, let's go back. Run her back, gun down. That's actually not too bad. You could calculate that the shots were all in the black, 3 of them on the inner circle, 2 of them in the red. It's challenging but more predictable than the Gerson, who's obviously already out of the tournament. But I can tell you, for $299, a pretty awful doggone good handgun. The magazine's locked to the rear. We had no malfunctions, and I think it demonstrates that it's at least as accurate as I am. Decent little pistol for $299. Let's see how it does against the Luger Security 9. The last firearm in today's matchups will be the Luger Security 9. This one priced at $395. You don't get much of an exterior case with it, just a cardboard box. And much like the Taurus, a basic extra magazine, which is nice, as well as the trigger lock from the factory. One of the things that makes this unit a little more unusual than the other two is it does have a frame-mounted manual exterior safety. So some people may like that, some people may not, but keep in mind it does make the operation of the gun slightly different over the other 3. The Luger sights look somewhat like they do on the Glock with the circle and a rectangle. However, the dimensions do seem to be slightly different. As we stated, we're moving on to the Luger Security 9. It is the only one with a frame-mounted exterior safety. Obviously, for some people, as I mentioned, that's a good or a bad thing, depending on how you see the world. I'm going to dry fire the gun one time, get used to the trigger, and then off we'll go. Same test, 15 rounds at 3 different distances. So, Luger Security 9 has Glock-ish sights and a not too bad of a trigger. Also a pleasant little surprise. So we'll go 5 at 10. Not tight as quite as the Canik, but all in reddish, pretty decent. I think what we're illustrating, if beyond anything, is that so far at the closer ranges, we haven't found a bad gun under $400 yet. So that's a good thing for our customers. So as we shoot, I'll try to narrate some other features of the gun I like or don't like. It has a short handle, but it's comfortable. I wouldn't say I have overly large hands, and they fit right on there good. The sighting system is good, and the recoil impulse is manageable. And the trigger is a little harder to manage at this distance. Excellent. It looks like my trend is moving to the left, but let me run the target back in and see. It is. We have a fairly decent spread as compared to the Taurus. Not a fan of the trigger, but I'll try to slow down some and see if I can't straighten up at the longer distances. But so far, being left-handed, my trend should be to the right, if anything, and not so much. It's the other way. So 50 feet, 5 rounds. I was wandering a bit at 25, so let's really bear down here and see what we can get done. That would appear to be a light strike. That could be ammo. That is not an uncommon thing these days with mil-spec primers. They're very hard cupped. That will be 4. I'm going to put another one in just to make it an even demonstration. Mags did lock to the rear. And number 5. Okay. Let's run it back. Yeah, good grouping there. This one we could probably chalk up to me. Does have a low print. I prefer guns that shoot more point of impact and point of aim. But like I said, this one's probably me just breaking a wrist or something. But either way, an awfully good group at 50 feet, lending me to believe that the 25-foot line might have just been a concentration or who knows what going on my part. Good gun. However, I can tell you, it will be eliminated. I prefer the Taurus G3 XL. It seems to have a little lighter recoil, and once you get onto the trigger, I prefer that one much better. So, Ruger out, Taurus in. Taurus now versus Canik TP9. So, it's the Canik TP9SF versus the Taurus G3 XL. I've already shot the guns for slow fire applied marksmanship, and I have to tell you, I prefer the Canik. It would be the one I would advance, unless in the great tradition of a three-point half-court shot, if the Taurus can hit the clothespin at 50 feet and the Canik cannot, the Taurus is moving on. Let's see how it goes. First the Canik. There's no guarantee that either one of these will hit, but I'm going to try and hit the clothespin on the left, vertical, not horizontal. So it'll be straight left of the left top bullseye. Did you see it move? So missed with the Canik. And the Hail Mary from the Taurus. Here we go. Hail Mary Taurus, same clothespin. Both a miss. I can tell you that the Canik at 50 is much easier to aim than the Taurus. Canik TP9SF is the winner of bracket number 1, clearly. Real quick, even though it was eliminated, the Taurus G3 XL is an excellent little pistol for $299 or so. It's got a little bit of a trigger with a learning curve, but once you catch on to it, it kind of smooths right in. It's obviously in that price point, not a competition trigger, but I think you can get used to it. It also comes with 2 magazines, and other than that is a no-frills, every man's 9mm pistol. I really think a lot of people would like it, especially those who want a gun, but don't want to shoot the gun in competition. It checks a lot of boxes for $299.